Hello, friends. How flexible are you? Now, I'm not talking about the whole stretchy, can you do the split kind of flexible, although that's important. Did you know that if you can touch your toes as an aging adult, your chance of breaking your hip is super less? Crazy. I'm talking about the kind of flexibility that's like, I don't know, standing with somebody who doesn't understand what you understand and who's driving you crazy kind of flexible, or time flexible. Because just like you don't break your hip if you're physically flexible, it's quite possible you might not break your relationships if you have a certain level of flexibility. So, welcome to the Walk and Talk. I'm going to talk about flexibility today. I'm going to talk about flexibility in your response when somebody is really super, like exaggeratingly emotional, and what that is so that you don't break your relationships. Hi, I'm Ann Ferguson, and I am this little girl. Literally, I'm 5'2", and I do these walk and talks on Monday through Thursday. I had to be a little flexible today. It's where this whole idea of flexibility came from, because there were things that were going on that derailed me this morning. So I'm 15 minutes late to this. So I hope that there are some people who are going to show up and talk to me today. If not, that's good. I'm flexible. I am an author. I am, what am I? I'm an ADDer and I'm a businesswoman, entrepreneur. That's kind of hard to say sometimes because, gosh, it feels like everything's going crazy. Today, flexibility. So what happened was, I woke up, had a thing in mind about what was going to go down. I woke up early enough that, it was just going to be chill. And then I got 2 notifications about things, and it was like, and you have to jump on this right now. One was a message from a friend, and there were some business transaction stuff that we had to get done this morning. I had to respond to her. Wasn't appropriate not to. So I sat there and I've got time. And then there was another thing that I had to do that was extremely time sensitive. And by the time I got done, I looked at the clock and I went, oh, crapola. I'm super late. Now, when that happens, what do you do? What do you do when you find out that you're really, really late and you got people that might be counting on you and you're gonna look like really flaky, and like, what happens? So the first thing that happened to me this morning was, in my mind, all of the reasons why I let people down and why blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of inadequacy that comes up with ADD when you're in a world where people, the systems and everything are not conducive to that, right? I love to hold time for people and try my best to get there. There is a time blindness, if you will, that some ADDers have, myself included. There are like these time warps where I will get involved in something and get focused on something, and it's like the concept of time gets totally taken out of my space, and it's like warped, and I look up and 30 seconds later, it's actually half an hour later. And my brain does not calculate in time. So alarms work, people who help me work. It is one of those inadequacies that I feel on a regular basis. So today, although it was highly productive, there's this great big bully out there, He doesn't want your success. He doesn't want you to feel good about yourself. So even though I got some major things done, very important things accomplished, you're late took away my celebrations. So I'm just going to happy dance for a minute. We talked about that one day, about happy dancing for the things that you actually do that are great. And I appreciate your time, patience, and flexibility for those of you who jumped on today. If not, and you're watching this later, hello. Okay, we're gonna talk about emotional responses that are crazy. The reason why I talked about what came up in me is because there's a gap where if I'm willing to look into the gap, I can see I'm feeling this and my response can be this. If I do not stop to look at the gap, I just react. And so anxiety started to kick in. And it started to pick up some speed. I have learned to recognize the signs that my body is going, yo, 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 there's something going on right here. And so I stop and I go, I am feeling super pressured and anxious. The truth is, I am late. See, I went into the gap. The truth is, I am late. And the truth is, I don't have a boss. I love you all, but you're not my boss. Which is really good for somebody who's a rebel kind of questioner person. So I said, you know what? It's all about expectations. If they expect me to be there and I'm not, we have a problem, Houston. If I let people know that I'm going to be late, I think that's okay. The other part of that is, guys, superhuman girl right here. It can look all fancy and look like I'm like super cool and I've got all my crap together. Those of you who've been watching me long enough, you know, I'm not. I'm just this girl trying to figure stuff out. And so I went into the gap and I allowed some flexibility before the emotional response got so big that I was a hot mess. So I want us to consider the first thing today is going into the gap between what you're feeling and what you're responding to. It's really, really highly important. And asking the question, okay, wait a minute, is this a self-imposed limitation? Is this something that I'm putting on myself? Is there an expectation from others that needs to be looked at and honored? And then make sure that you let people know when you cannot follow through on their expectations. It's kind of helpful. All right, now we're going to go into this other thing that I was actually going to talk about today. That's this emotional thing. So, my ability to sit with someone who is having a major emotional response is quite developed. It's okay. Somebody can be having lots and lots of emotion. And I have learned two things. You've heard me talk about this. One is that no matter what they're feeling, I didn't make them feel that. That is such a huge, like, freedom. I did not make them feel that. I cannot make anybody feel anything. Again, for those of you who have not seen me, let me explain. I could be, I don't know, late, not that it's ever happened somewhere, and the person on the other side could feel abandoned. They could feel worried. They could feel relieved because maybe they're not ready. They could feel, right? So because of that choice that they have to feel whatever they're feeling, I didn't make them feel anything by my being late. Now, did I have impact on it? Yes, absolutely. But I didn't make them. Because I know that, when somebody is having an emotional response, I can totally sit with them in whatever they're feeling. I'm always fascinated by humans who are feeling. It's actually super cool. It's super cool to watch a human have the human experience of emotion. The problem comes when said other human is throwing the emotion at you and making you responsible for their emotion. That's when you go, you know what? You have the right to feel whatever you're feeling, and it's actually not my responsibility. But this is where we need to watch ourselves, because those of you who get wrapped up really quickly when somebody else has big emotion, right? It's super easy to do, and you just feel all of the energy of what they're feeling. When that happens, all you want them to do is stop feeling. Like, no, 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 I don't want all of this. So here's the reality of why that's happening. Our bodies, actually, when we feel something, our bodies vibrate with it. Like there's literally an energy that comes out. Have you ever been around somebody who is super positive? Like, and you just feel so much better after being in their presence? It's because the vibrational energy that comes from their positivity actually impacts your body. There's a lot of things, guys, that we do not see transmitting all over the place. Like right now, there's light going between me and you. Because you're not physically in front of me, we're actually meeting spiritually. And all of these signals is all traveling through light. Well, emotions can do that too. And there are emotions that are full of light and there are emotions that don't. But they produce an energy wave that you feel. So, if you are not used to going, oh, that is your energy wave, and I actually do not have to tune into it, it can be really, really, really overwhelming. Especially when somebody is coming at you with their emotions in great big ways. Now, I have a secret. It's almost like how to defuse the bomb. How to bring all of that down so that everything calms down without you taking on their emotion. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm trying to communicate and my husband feels blamed, and then he says, you know, I just feel like you're blaming me, then I feel misunderstood. And so I try to tell him more with more emotional response so that he understands what I'm actually saying. And he's just in lockdown mode now, and the walls go up and he gets overwhelmed. It's okay to be overwhelmed. There is nothing wrong with him being overwhelmed with my emotion. What happens though is that I feel unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. And I feel like nothing is going on. Like nothing is changing. Let's go back to when you were children so you can figure this out, right? Okay, so you are a little bit uncomfortable. And you're happy and happy. Watch this with babies, right? Happy, happy, happy. And then they kind of fuss and they kind of go, and you try to calm them. You go, oh, you're okay. Let's play again. Blah. And they're like, And then if you do not actually address what the problem is, they will start to scream. Blah, blah, and they will scream so loud with so much intensity that it drives you absolutely crazy and you can't not respond. You've got to respond to them because of the level of screaming, crying, fussing that's coming at you. Okay, that is something that we did for survival, and a lot of us still have that in us. We want to be seen. Hey, I'm fussy. I got a problem here. We want to be heard. Hear that I'm uncomfortable. Like, know that there's something wrong. And understood. Oh, darn it, you're messy. Let's fix that. That's understood. Because that is the pattern from the time that we're born through a lot of our childhood. That's how we still operate. And when you're not actually heard and you're not actually seen, then what do? You scream louder in order, you feel bigger in order to have somebody see you. Now, some people are naturally more sensitive, more expressive about emotion, and they come at it with intensity because they want you to know, like now. Especially anybody who has a sensory issue. They are more expressive. The way to calm that is to see them and to hear them and to understand them. Notice, sorry, I did not say agree with them. Listen to that again. The way To calm down, a major emotional response is to see them, to hear them, and to understand what's going on. It does not mean that you agree with them. That's where we have a problem. Can I tell you why? Now, first of all, before we do that, I just want you to know, you rebels out there who totally own that's your problem, that's not my problem, deal with it, and you walk away. It's actually a problem that you're walking away. It's a problem. You are right, you are not responsible, meaning able to respond to their neurological state and emotional state. You can't change anything. But I just had a conversation with a mom who has a rebel child, and she is really good about that. That's your problem, deal with it. And she walks away. And her mom's like, I don't understand. Because I'm an obliger. She comes in and it's like, she feels everybody's emotions and takes care of them. So this mother and daughter are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. And so there is a happy medium where you detach from somebody else's emotion and you don't detach so far that you're like walking completely away. This is where this validation comes in, where you see, you hear, and you understand. And you speak in a way that makes that happen. It was a big deal for me. A big deal that Tom did this just recently with this whole we might have to move thing. When I texted him, I was just letting him know that the property manager had called and I was sick to my stomach. Like I immediately went to a massive flood of emotion, and his response was, yeah, I bet this is rough for you. That's all he needed to say. Guess what? I stopped screaming. I stopped telling him and word vomiting all over, because he validated that, oh yeah, I can see this is really, really tough. Oh my gosh, it was so good. So when we're thinking about taking on the perspective of somebody else, this is what empathy versus sympathy is all about. Sympathy is going, oh, yeah, you're doing a thing. You just take care of yourself. I'm gonna go over here. Parents did that to us a lot, right? They said, hey, go take care of yourself. When you're done fussing, you can come out. Go to timeout until you can get yourself put together again. I don't have time for this, and all the dismissal. And so we actually learned that we're supposed to take care of ourselves, but we have no idea how to process emotion, most of us. So perspective taking is this. I have a view of what I'm seeing, and I'm interpreting what I'm seeing. In a house, in my house, I could look out or stand on open up the back door and look out, and I see the lawn, I see trees, I see things. My husband could be upstairs looking out the window to the exact same thing that I am looking at, and he sees the awning and the grass and the trees, but he doesn't see the flower pots that I see underneath the awning. He doesn't see the table or the chairs that are sitting there. He doesn't see that because the place in which he is viewing things from, he's blocked from that. So as far as this goes with people's emotions, if you haven't actually walked in their shoes, you don't have their perspective. So when we assume we know, I'm such an assumer. Oh my gosh, for years I have assumed. It's probably one of my biggest weaknesses is assuming. And I have learned that it completely invalidates the person that I'm talking to. Assuming completely, I'm going to say it again, invalidates somebody else's experience. It has taken me years to assess the situation. That's kind of the assuming thing. Assess the situation and pause. And next step, get curious. Okay, so I'm looking out at the backyard and this is what I see. Hey, do you see the flower pots like I see the flower pots? Nope, I don't see them because my husband's standing upstairs looking at the same thing. He says, hey, do you see all the balls and the Woody doll that's sitting on the awning? No, I don't see that. Is that what you're seeing? That's what I'm seeing. That understanding is the same thing as validating somebody else's perspective. Gaslighting is telling somebody that their perspective isn't valid. So let's go with this house idea, right? I'm downstairs looking at the backyard and my husband is upstairs standing in a window that's looking over the exact same thing. And I say, what do you mean you don't see the flower pots? I mean, the flower pots are right there. What do you mean? And he's like, look, there's no flower pots. There's absolutely no flower pots. So both of us are actually invalidating. If he says, there's no flower pots down there, I don't see any flower pots, that could make me feel crazy because what the crap? I see the flower pots. They're just right here. Okay. Here's the thing. If you have grown up with a narcissistic person who does gaslight, you are a second generation gaslighter. It was such a revelation when I realized this. It's because I learned the communication style of the gaslighter. I didn't learn to validate. I learned to assume. Why? Because that was a coping mechanism that you do when you're in a relationship with somebody who cannot turn inward. Because that's really about narcissism. It's not about taking care of yourself. It's about not stopping and going, wait a minute, my perspective is not all that there is. See, a narcissist can't do that. They can't understand that somebody is seeing the exact same thing from a different perspective. No, their perspective is their perspective, end of story. So there's this invalidation. There are no flower pots when you're staring at a flower pot. And you're like, oh, maybe there isn't flower pots because they are so strong, right, in what they're doing. So yes, you might assume because that was the coping mechanism that you learned to be in relationship with somebody who couldn't turn inward. Like, you've got to view all of the perspectives and then assume that you know which window they're looking out of so that you can agree with their perspective so that they do not gaslight you, don't blame you, don't tell you you're crazy, don't say stop lying to me, don't disparage you as though you are, you know, all the things. They don't berate you because you're not seeing what they're seeing. So those of us who have been raised by that type of personality, we, man, are taking perspective of everybody and everything all the time. We're just looking and scanning, and it's a superpower. And a lot of times you're right. Like, I would say probably 75% of the time, you're pretty right. It's just like 75% of the time as I'm looking on my front or my back porch that I see the things that he sees. I see the grass, I see the wall, I see the rose bushes, I see the neighbors behind me. Like 75%. I'm seeing what they're seeing. But there's that 25%. And if I'm not acknowledging the 25% of emotion that is really, really big, they're going to feel like I'm not seen. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop talking. There are flower pots. I'm just going to stop talking. And relationships shuts down. So what would be good is to stop. It's not the person that's in the massive emotional spin that can usually stop, because if they're spinning high enough with enough intensity, then their cognitive ability to think logically or think something through, it's offline. They're just in their emotional brain, which is just the reaction. It's the freeze, fight, flight, fawn. That's what they're doing, and they can't think. So if you're witnessing somebody in a great big emotional thing, Your step is to get curious and say, okay, I am not seeing things in the way that you see. Can you explain to me what this is about? What are you seeing? And then you've got to listen to the feelings that they're trying to express. We tell stories in order to elicit emotion. Did you know that? That's because we don't have emotional vocabulary. So rather than saying very calmly, so from my perspective, I'm seeing this and I feel that. We show what we're feeling instead of speaking it. So if you're in relationship with somebody who's got great big huge emotions, one of the things to do is to hear the emotion, not the words that they're speaking. I don't know why you told me to do this. I couldn't do it. And now this went down. And it's like, oh gosh, they're feeling completely inadequate right now because they didn't know how to do what they were doing. So that's when you get curious. I'm curious. I hear you. You repeat back, but not in a like McDonald's kind of way. You go, so when you did this, you believed that, and so you're feeling this. Okay, so when you went to the store, you believed I was counting on you to get the cheese, and you didn't have full clarity and couldn't call me. And so you felt really panicked about bringing home the wrong kind of cheese. Is that what happened? Yes, you don't ever tell me all the things. If you would have just told me all the things, the blame comes back. You go, hey, I hear you. That must have been really, really frustrating that you didn't know exactly what I wanted. And I'm just grateful that you tried. Thanks, hon. Can you see why immediately that can shut that down? What perspective did they have? Well, maybe it's coming from some other place where they left something out or it didn't go well. Doesn't matter. You just go, so this is what you're seeing, and you listen for the feelings. And how you do that is, if I were there, not knowing that the cheese is important for the recipe, not being able to get a hold to clarify, I would feel what? I would feel panicked. I would feel responsible and dreading the disappointment. I would feel like I'm letting everybody down. And really, when all those things feel, that I've got shame going on, and I would feel really frustrated. So that's how you validate. Get really curious. What is your experience right now? And why would that happen? Now, I really want you to hear one more time. We tell stories in order to elicit emotion so somebody understands what we're feeling. We tell stories. Sometimes stories are extremely exaggerated. I was working with a mom who was telling me that there was a situation that happened with her daughter. And there was like a removal, like you can't have this or you can't be around. I think there was a divorce situation and the daughter wasn't allowed to come back to mom's house because disrespect had gone on really big. Like you know how 13-year-olds, they judge you anyway, then you put the trauma of a divorce and it's like venom, you know? So this mom was trying to hold her boundaries, trying to say what I deserve is this and all the yelling and the disrespect is not. So she told the father who came to pick her up, hey, it's been too bad disrespectful wise, and so yeah, she can't come back until Monday. So this is really like a Thursday, can't come back till Monday. Later on, when the daughter related the story, in her perspective, she said that it was awful and that she was not allowed to come to the house for 3 weeks. And this mother was like, that is so not true. That is so not true. It wasn't 3 weeks. So immediately when she says that, she's what? Invalidating perspective. Because the perspective is, if you hear the emotion, that rejection, if you will, that punishment, that this daughter had just barely moved in with her dad, the confusion about the divorce, the aloneness and separation from her siblings that she was feeling was intense and huge. And this mom had no idea how to hear emotion or perspective through the venom that her daughter was shooting at her. She couldn't hear because the attack was so real, and mom didn't know how to separate out. Oh, my daughter's having an emotional experience and she's blaming me, but I haven't actually made her feel, but she's feeling big things. So what happened was she's like, that wasn't even true. I mean, that wasn't even true. How am I even supposed to respond to that? It wasn't even true. The reality was, what the daughter was doing was telling a story to elicit the emotion and convey how deep it was, how deep she felt. For her, the level of intensity in which she experienced that event was 3 weeks of separation, even though it was only 1. Now, in the daughter's mind, it was still 3 weeks. That's the only way she could interpret and make sense out of how big the emotion was. Why? Because she didn't have the ability yet to speak emotion. That hurt like it was like 3 weeks worth of separation, even though it was only 3 days. It was awful to be separated from my family, feeling rejected, and my siblings, and feeling like I was so unstable anyway. Like I didn't even know what was going on. When somebody that you love over exaggerates what the story is, how bad it was, what you did to them, what they did, what somebody else did to them, and it's just like this great big huge thing, and you go, oh my gosh, like it's not that big of a deal. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? It really was just that. Welcome to invalidation. You just did it. But they're not telling the truth. Like, how can we even have a conversation if they're not going to tell the truth? They are telling the truth. But you've got to interpret the story. It's one of the things that's interesting about poetry, right? Is that poetry are these little lines of symbolism. And when you look deep, you can feel the emotion of the poetry. We don't study poetry anymore. We don't study poetry. We don't pick up on what people are actually saying. So, if you have somebody in your life who is kind of fussing, and then really, really fussing, and then expressing with all sorts of intensity the negative feelings that they're having about something, listen to the heart and validate. Wow, this feels big. Like this was really, really intense for you. I can see why this was a big deal. You know, I see that you feel a lot about this. All of that is not saying, I agree with you, they suck. I agree with you. Your mother should have never, ever kicked you out of her house for 3 weeks. When you know that it was only 3 days. Okay, it's not about agreeing with their perspective. It's about seeing that they are looking at the same thing as you from a different vantage point, from their history, from the things their parents have told them, from the things they've concocted in their own brain to make sense of things. One of my favorite, I used to do home daycare. One of my favorite kids ever was always trying to make connections to things. And it's like he had almost the truth, but not all of it. And so I remember this one time he told me, he was all excited, came home from school, as kindergartner, came home from school, and he's like, Miss Ann, I found something out. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I know how sharks see in the dark. And I go, you do? How do sharks see in the dark? He goes, electric eels. They turn the lights on. He was not actually doing a pun or a joke. He actually had put together that electricity turns on lights, and there is a creature in the sea called an electric eel that must help sharks see when it's dark, because he recognizes that the sea is dark. Isn't that so awesome? He put it all together in his own little head. Guess how many times you do that? You assume this, you see that, you gather this bit of information, and then you concoct what the event means. We all do that. All of us do it. And when we do it, it helps us wrap our brain around something, but that perspective is not everyone else's perspective. So, I'm going to end with this. Witnessing. To validate someone is to witness them. So on a witness stand, somebody says, this is what I saw. I saw this, and I saw that, and I saw this. I swear that's what I saw. They don't say, I totally agree with his actions and why he did this. It's because she did that, so I'm going to be in total alignment with that. That's not what a witness does. A witness says, this is what I observed, and I'm speaking my observation. And then the judge gets to decide what to do, right? That's a witness. So we can use this in this experience of, number one, separating out so you're not feeling somebody else's emotion. And number two, standing in empathy, saying, I see you. You are extremely upset right now. I hear you. You are upset because you didn't get the lollipop, and they did. And you wanted the orange one, and you got the yellow one, and that's got you upset. I see that. Okay? You're not saying it's okay to throw a tantrum. It's like, I'm seeing you. Guess what happens? You guys practice this. It is amazing. When you see and you hear, the emotional intensity drops down immediately. It's just like soothing a baby. Oh, come here. Let me see. Oh, darn it. Okay, so we're messy. Let me change that. And immediately, they're like happy. I mean, you're changing them, and then they go on, and everything's okay. Right? Because they were seen. People know they're just uncomfortable. Right? You don't have to change somebody's diaper. You don't have to fix their stuff. But just being aware of what they're feeling from their perspective. You want to stop gaslighting? You want to never be accused of gaslighting? Start getting curious. And witnessing. I see you. I keep playing with this because I'm a recovering second generation gaslighter, and it's working every single time. It doesn't matter how young, it doesn't matter how old. This is really important for those of you who've got kids that are leaving the church. You guys know who I am, or having faith crisis, or in LGBT something, right? I have somebody close to me that came to me about being bisexual. Whether I agree that that is even a thing or not a thing, if I believe that it's morally wrong or morally right, it doesn't matter. So what you're telling me is that when you were 13 and you had a friend and they were doing like a kind of a kissing party, and you kissed this girl that incited something in you and left an impression, and now that impression is coming up, right? And so bisexuality is that correct? Is that what you're feeling? And then they can correct you and go, no, not exactly. It's more like this. And as you hear that it's more like this, you can go, oh, okay. I can see how you're coming to that. I really appreciate, because I don't have any experience with this, but knowing how you see things and how you're interpreting things and what you're feeling about it, I'm just really grateful that you opened up and let me in to see. I am not agreeing or disagreeing with anything, but I have not slammed that door. I am witnessing that somebody is experiencing something about their sexuality that they're trying to understand. Their feelings, their emotions, their physical responses. I don't have to understand in order to see. I see you. I've taken that in. I see you. I see you're upset. I see you're joyful. I see you're creative. I see you. I see this makes you happy. I see that instance kind of scares you. I see you. That's how we stop gaslighting. Just see. That's how we separate our emotions. We don't have to feel with them in order to see. We have to witness that they are feeling and that there is a perspective that is completely valid. My perspective of being on my back porch with an awning above me, with flowers next to me, is not wrong. My husband's perspective of being up in the upstairs, looking at the same thing, having an awning, seeing the balls, and literally there's a Woody doll. I have to take a picture. There's a Woody doll. Buzz never rescued him. Anyway, there's a Woody doll that's stuck on this awning. Just because I can't see that doesn't mean it exists. Not wrong in your perspective. You are never wrong in what you feel. Just different. I am not afraid of spiders. Somebody who is afraid of spiders doesn't need to hear, I don't know why you're afraid of spiders, they're just little. What they need to hear is, oh, so this really, really gets you going? What would you like me to do? Can I help you with something? Yes, grab a shoe. Okay, do you want to watch? Do you want to leave? What do you need? Ask them, what do you need? Instead of just going, oh, for goodness sake, grabbing the shoe, smashing the spider in front of somebody who doesn't like to watch anything be killed is a traumatic event. What do you need? I see you. I hear you. What do you need? What can I do to support you? If that is appropriate. That is it, my friends. I went way longer than expected. I started way later than expected. Thanks for being here. Learn how to witness. That's it. Share this. Share this. If this matters to you, if you have somebody who needs to know how to do empathy because they separate themselves from everybody and everything and they're going, that's not my business, and they get shut down, they're either overwhelmed with too much emotion or they've got absolutely no idea what to do with the emotion that's coming at them. Share this. Share this. And if you want actual training in how to do all this, have your emotions, you've got to validate yourself first. If you want to know how to do that without going into the deep, dark rabbit holes that therapy provides, please join me. Igniting Your Belief is a class that I teach, and I teach all of this. And you're working one-on-one with me. It's not an automated course. It's me, 5 to 8 people, once a week. Join me in a class. Okay? That's it, everybody. Have a great day. See you. Bye-bye.